Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Steve from the Pinball Room. Happy to be here with you. We've got a lot of good things to do today. It's kind of just like a smorgasbord of tweaks and adjustments. We went to the show, got some playtesting in from people on a handful of things, got a lot of help from other individuals, and got a lot. I've got a list of how many here? How many is it? We got a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things that we've got to go through and clean up and improve to make this game even better. All right, seriously though, number one thing on the list, not surprising, was this left ramp. Looking at this shape, and I knew this going in, I did, but I think I don't know, was downplaying it, thinking maybe it wouldn't be that big of an issue. When you got a ramp that comes down to this spine of points, and the ball can come in, well, guess what? The ball comes in, hits this, and just airballs, just launches. I mean, it's a miniature ramp right next to it, right? We had a post in front of one side, okay, that kept it from doing most of its airballs. But the ball could still come in from that flipper across here and hit this, the upper side or the left side of this ramp and just launch over the drop targets and bouncing all around. It was not good. So we have iterated, okay? Printed this out, and now we have sides. There's a bit of a difference, huh? And then, there we go. Okay, so we got lips on both sides. So version 2.0, I'm not sure these will be perfect walls, but at least we have something, okay? This one on this side is basically exactly the height of the post that's right in front of it. So I think that's a good height. And this one also is just a tad bit shorter, but it's still high enough. Where's the ball? When the ball comes, it's never gonna launch up it. It might break that piece of plastic. We'll see. But there should not be any more air balls. Speaking of plastic, I had a bunch of people ask me, like, are you planning on keeping the 3D printed ramps and everything like for your final version, Steve? My original vision of this, was that I want this pinball machine, when it's in the lineup in my game room next to all the rest of my pinball machines, I don't want anyone to be able to come through and immediately go like, oh, that's your cute little homebrew that looks all janky. I want it to look like it belongs. Has beautiful decals and artwork and just fits in. And when people look at it, I don't want it to just scream, you made this out of a bunch of random parts in your garage, right? So whether I go through and get these things sent over to Send Cut Send with the metal, with their laser cutter to make it look really nice and professional, or if I pull out my own little vacuum former oven and a shop vac and I start to vacuum form the plastic ramps, probably going to go down one of those two routes because I want this to look sharp. And I honestly don't mind a few 3D printed parts here and there where they make sense. The staircase mech is going to be 3D printed because I don't have true manufacturing and process, the ability to send it out to shop to get molded and all that, and so that's going to be 3D printed for sure. But most of the rest of these things, I think we should be able to go through and replace them with true metal or other vacuum formed professional looking parts. But we'll see. We'll see where we end up. I don't know. Cost and time is a thing too, and honestly, it's working good. So it's more just a matter of will it look good. And right now I don't love the look of how things are going with a 3D printer. It looks a little too obviously 3D printed, but we can paint things, we can do things at different settings. I don't know, we'll see where we end up. Okay, enough of that. So this is the ramp. Ramp's done. The next thing was right underneath the ramp. Okay, and let me bring you in closer. So the next thing was right underneath this ramp. Okay, it's this inner orbit shot here, right? To go around the left orbit. With the drop targets here in front and this pop bumper, this is a pretty kind of tight, awkward angle to try to actually make like an orbit shot that will carry all the way around. Now, did it happen? Yes, I did see some people making that shot. Ricochets, it could go up there, but it's not really an intentional shot. So I'm not putting like a switch in here to try to like award people for it because I don't see that happening consistently. But we'll keep doing more playtesting. This could be maybe like another orbit entrance I didn't really anticipate. But the primary one is this tight one underneath the ramp. And it is tight. A couple people complained that it was too tight. And you know what? I looked at it halfway through the show, and sure enough, this piece of metal had kind of gotten shoved all around, and so it was a little bit tighter than what it should be. I repositioned it just a couple millimeters, and I think it makes it more accessible and able to go. But the way I have this right now, this piece of metal just kind of slides back and forth inside here. I'm not sure how well you can even see that. You're kind of like straight on. But this piece of metal is just inside these little C-clip holders here that we have, and it slides back and forth. And this gate right here is to make sure the ball can go through, but when it comes back down, if it hits here, I always want it to return through here. I don't want it to return back onto the ramp. I want it to return down here to the pop bumper, right, and get kicked across. Well, when this piece of metal came up too far, the ball gate would go up, it would get stuck up, and the ball could either come down, or sometimes the way the angle was, the ball would even just kind of get hung up right here in between the edge of this bracket and the piece of metal. So I need to adjust for that. The more I play with it, the more I'm convinced that once I get in the right spot and actually have it with riveted posts and held in place, I don't think it's going to be an issue. The gate works fine, the ball never hangs up. So I'm going to wait to iterate on that until we get to the point where we're actually putting the riveted posts and drilling our ball guides down into place on Playfield, which hopefully won't be too much further along. But so I'm not going to do anything else with that one for right now. All right, that's 2. So number 3 is the inline drop target just behind this left ramp. It also was a fairly narrow shot, and I never saw anybody making all 3 drop targets. They would make the first one and have a hard time getting back in there, making those shots consistently. So what I wanted to do, and this was an idea that Brian Cox gave me, was the entrance up here, I could lengthen that. It's kind of a sideways shot, right? So it doesn't increase it a whole lot, but if I just took this post here that's in the front and moved it back the width of the post, exactly the width of one post, that opens it up an extra like 6 or 8 millimeters. I'm hoping that'll make it that much more of a doable shot. Still not like a total gimme, but you should be able to hit it more consistently. So that's the thought there. So I have gone ahead and done that. I drilled and moved that back. So it's right here. You can kind of see the hole that was there in front, and now I've moved this back. Okay, so now the plastic overhangs a little bit, but okay, so I did that. The other thing I did here was this metal ball guide. The way I put this in, when I put in this last support for the upper playfield, that support post ended up going like right where this metal ball guide was supposed to be going, the back bend. So I took everything out and moved it in front. I had put it behind that post. Now it's slightly in front of that post, which is good because this piece of metal, the front edge of this ball guide coming out, it was short before, and so the ball will come out. The ball will come out and then hit the edge of this ramp and just kind of like click and go off at a different angle and went straight to the outlane every time. So it's not a good feed, not a good exit from that area. So that ball guide is now forward. So the hope is now when the ball goes up there, it'll roll out smooth, not really hit the edge of this ramp. This is not the final ball guide here, piece of metal. Still kind of janky. We got kind of Swiss cheese going on with the holes for the opto switches. So we'll put a new one in, and this will probably come out just a little bit further, just to get us closer to the edge of this ramp to make sure it's a nice smooth exit from there. Okay, so that was number 3. So number 4 was we have an orbit shot back here at the very top of the orbit for the left orbit. We have to have 2 orbit switches, right? So the software knows you hit this one, then that one, you hit this one, then that one, so it knows which direction you went, whether it's a full orbit shot or just kind of halfway up and you lost, came down. But the orbit shot, the switch that I had, is pretty much right at the very top of this loop, of this lane for the loop, right? And that's because I was concerned about putting it here in front and having the ball come out of here and hit the switch by itself. But now that I understand better how the orbit switches work, you really, you won't count an orbit shot as being completed until you've made it all the way around the orbit, and you'll have hit 2 switches in succession, right? One then the other within a period of time. So I think we can take that switch from up here and move it down here. And the reason why I want to move it is because up here at the top, my orbit at the top is a little flat, as a couple of you pointed out, and so it's possible if the ball is going very, very slow, it can just kind of rest at the top. Now, I tested that a bunch going slow before my own, and with the ball moving slow, and I never had problems with it hanging up. However, as soon as I put the switch in there, and that was close enough to the top, where now there's just a little bit of added friction against that wire, if the ball's going slow, it can get up there and get stuck against that wire and just hold itself in place, and you have to shake it loose. That's annoying as all get out, right? And that happened probably 4 or 5 times at the show. So definitely not going to be a solution. So I either need to replace it with like an induction switch that doesn't have anything stick up out of the wood that just senses when the ball rolls over it. And I've got one of those to play around with. My buddy Mike Becker, the guy who's making Fight Club, he's been using some of those. He sent me one to try out, so we'll experiment with that. The other idea though is I can also just move it down here and just know that the software is going to make sure that you hit both switches before it counts in orbit. So I'm actually going to start with that for right now, is just move the switch right over here. So we need to hurry and do that. We're going to move that switch. All right, so right here is the switch. And instead of being right back here in the middle, we're going to move it up over here on this side. What I'm trying to go through and do is make sure that the placement of the switch, because this orbit's kind of wide, so the ball can kind of go on either side of the wire if I just put it straight in the center, right? What I want to do is try to find out, you know, as the ball goes through really fast, okay, it hugs the outside, no problem, right? But as the ball goes really slow, right, there's a certain place where it comes over and still finally comes over and hits the outside wall and comes down. So from that part where I mark it, I don't want to put the switch any higher than that up here, or else it could go on the wrong side of it. Professional. All right, let's keep moving on. Number 4, one of the next main things that I want to address is the shot to this left ramp. Another thing with this left ramp. So I was watching people go through and play the game, and it was very inconsistent, people's success with the left ramp. There are some people who came up here and didn't make it once out of the 10 tries they had, never could make the shot. Other people made it 1 or 2 times during those, 8 or 9 times that they had a shot. Some other people came up, made it 3 times in a row, one gal. Another guy made it like 5 times over the course of his game plan. So it's definitely doable, people can do it, but finding that sweet spot on the flipper, it's really hard to find. Now, I like having some hard shots in the game. I don't want this to be a total gimme. People see it like, oh, I want to make that shot. And if you just make it like so easy to hit all the time, yeah, it's going to get old, right? So I kind of want a little bit of challenge. You have to kind of dial it in to be able to hit it and feel like, oh, okay, I'm really trying to make that shot and it feels good when you make it. But at the same time, I don't want it to be like impossible. Plus, I just want it to be more of a clean shot. And Brian Cox also, thank you, Brian, he pointed out something to me. When I very first was doing this shot, I was very careful about where I placed this flipper in relationship to these 2 shots, the inline drop targets and this left ramp. Those are the 2 primary shots I want to make sure that this upper flipper can hit for you, right? You can go a little bit lower, maybe hit these drop targets, come a little higher, maybe get something into the stairs immediately, right? But like, these are the primary shots for that flipper. And somehow, through when I think I did it by hand, when I put it into the CNC or whatever, maybe I wasn't checking quite as closely, quite as carefully, but Brian pointed out that where I have it right now, that the way this flipper is positioned, the angle and how high the point of rotation, right? The fulcrum, whatever this is called here, right? The flipper where it turns on the post, it's a little too high. And so really the sweet spot right now for that flipper is for these inline drop targets. And that's not a shot that you need like a lot of power, right? You need to be able to aim it, but the ball can just kind of roll in there and hit those drop targets. You don't need to have that be like the sweet spot. Where the steep ramp, where it actually needs some power, right? And not just a matter of the amount of power, but also like the angle the ball is going to be coming off. To be able to get the ball to come off the angle of this flipper and come up this ramp straight, smoothly, and not be coming up and ricocheting off the sides of the walls and losing all this momentum, you have to have that in the right lineup. And so if you look at the clean shot into this ramp, now the ramp is wide, so it can have a little bit of imperfection in the shot. But right now, coming straight off of how that flipper rests, the sweet spot, you're coming up and you're going to be hitting pretty hard on this near side, ricocheting. Or if you get it, hit a little bit later on the flipper, you might be able to get a little bit, but then you're either going to be hitting this side or that side. It's not completely clean. If I line this up from the ramp and kind of in the middle of that sweet spot, look how much lower down the tip of the flipper it's coming. Can you see that? For me to really get that where it needs to be, it's down lower. I've got it a little too high still. The sweet spot for that flipper is actually kind of like right in between. It's like right on the edge of this ramp right here to be able to come it up cleanly. So you've either got to be able to hit it like right on the tip of the flipper, and even then you're going to be coming up pretty close to this side, which is where people were getting the air balls. having this thicker edge of the ramp will help guide the ball up. That will help a little bit. But this flipper, it needs to get lowered down. It's a little too high still. If I lowered it even just like one bit, like the width, about another ½ inch, right? If I put that hole just right down below it and just lowered the whole thing, that would help. We're getting there. We're still pretty close to the edge of the flipper though. So I think I need to lower it and or bring it out. I can lower it and bring it into the center of the playfield. I don't know that I want to bring it too far into the center of the playfield. Maybe it's a little bit of kind of the both of those. And these stand-ups are now getting in the way. This top stand-up target is now in the way. So I need to take that out to get this lined up. All right. So I just moved it straight down. When do we hit that sweet spot? Maybe I have to move it down a lot, or I've got to move it out a little bit also. So yeah, it's going to be better. It's either that, or I have to somehow change the angle of this ramp a little bit. I feel like I already had the ramp kind of dialed in how I wanted it, so I don't really want to mess with the ramp too much more. All right. Whew. Okay. Was that number 4? Number 4 done? So we've recklessly just cut straight into our whitewood again in our basement. we'll clean it all up. All right. This 3D printed plastic here, this guide for the ball, I think that's still, yeah, it'll still work as it is right now, even though it has a little bit of a gap here. Obviously, long term, we don't really want that gap there. So I will print out this piece again, fill in that hole, but for now, we can continue playing with it and testing with it just the way it is. Yeah. Okay, that'll work great. I just left 2 stand-up targets instead of making room for the third. The third will need to cut in here deeper. That's going to take more of a cut than just a simple drill. I don't want to bother with that right now. We can continue to play test with just 2 stand-up targets. We'll know we'll have a third a little bit lower, or maybe we'll just have 2. Who knows? Maybe there's only room for 2, but we'll figure that out. See, one of the other things that was on my list, moving right along, that I already did. So we'll call this number 5, 4.5. I noticed when people were playing the game that there was a whole lot of really aggressive drains that were happening on people. The ball, especially over here on the right-hand side, would just drain out. It was like this giant funnel. The way I ended up angling these stand-up targets made like a funnel. And so it was just way too easy for the ball to drain, and like no one had a chance to save it. It was like super brutal on both sides even, but especially on this side. One thing that somebody pointed out to me, it might have been Brian Cox again or somebody else. Actually, I think it was somebody else. But with these metal ball guides I have, which I really like because they're the stainless steel look cool, they're shorter here than most are. And so that makes it to where the top of that inlay guide is way below the top of the slingshot, which also makes it a bigger hole and harder to get the ball back out of. And it's just flat metal, there's no rubber or anything, so the ball just kind of hits it and dies and goes right off the side. There's not much you can do to save it at all. So I went ahead and just put in a post in front of each of these, and we could play with the height and exactly how much we want to block that off versus how much we want to leave it open. Right now I just put it about 1/4 inch in front, maybe 1/2 inch in front of that post with a rubber. So it makes it a little bit smaller, so it should not be as brutal of a drain. Plus you have that rubber, so you have a chance to kind of bump and nudge and try to get it out. So we'll start with that. I think that will take a little bit of adjusting also to where we have it, to where it's not too brutal, but you know, not too easy to save it. But yeah, so okay, so we put these 2 posts in here at the top also. That was another fix. All right, number 5/6. Okay, the other thing we need is for this horseshoe loop, and I'm kind of going back and forth on this. I had down on my list that for this horseshoe loop here, we've got one sensor over here that I can use to count the shot and also to trigger this diverter at the right time during the game, which we finally got the diverters working. It'll hold, the importance of having the right coil. I cannot stress that enough. When you're using the fast hardware system, not Culver Pin, not P-Rock, P3 Rock, and it might be true for them also, but definitely if you're using fast, the way everything's set up with their circuit boards, which is fabulous, but it also means that if you're going to ever be using a coil that has any sort of hold power, where you're going to try to hold the coil open, you absolutely have to make sure your coils have diodes on them to help regulate the pulse of that power. At the same time, the guys who build fast, Dave Beecher said that really every coil should have a diode. Switches don't need diodes for fast, but every coil should have a diode. Even if you're not doing a coil that's going to have hold power, it does not hurt to have a diode on it. It's just an added layer of protection against the circuit boards. Make sure you don't burn out driver coils. I burned out several diodes on my boards because I didn't have a diode on my coil, and it was not right when I was messing around with it. Anyway, so there's my little public service announcement. Always have diodes on your coils, all right? And again, if you're brand new, diodes are these little pieces of like plastic, what they look like right here, going across, bridging between the two. Always have these on your coils, okay? So anyway, the diverter's working. I have the right code and the right coil. We'll get it working. I'm gonna fix the one here in the back with the right coil, and the diverters will be working. All right, but back to what I was talking about. I have an opto here for the horseshoe lane. I had down in my notes I should add an opto on this side. So again, it's also basically like a miniature orbit, right? So I should have 2 switches. So I know if they've made it all the way up or they only made it up part way and back down, it doesn't count as a full loop, right? So I need to add another opto on this side also, so I can say if they came from the left or from the right, and whether it was a full, you know, run around that horseshoe or not, a full loop. So I need to add in an opto here. It means I need to take off some plastics, and I need to pull out this piece of metal, and I need to drill some holes on both those 2 pieces so we can fit an optical switch in here. There should be room. Yep. All right. So let's do that next. Okay, I got the holes drilled in the ball guides and back in. I haven't put the optos quite back in yet because that actually takes us to step number 6 or 7 of tweaks we need to have, and that is the staircase itself. So the staircase, which we've taken out for right now, right? But the staircase, when it's in here and people are going through and playing the game, let's pretend the staircase is in, right? Let me get it mostly in. All right. So let's say the staircase is in. Okay. People are going along. They're having a great time. They're shooting the ball, playing the game. Everything's great, right? And a lot of it was because of this left ramp. They had that crazy angle so that the ball was jumping and airballing everywhere, right? But even from other shots, the ball too many times could ricochet, bounce around, and somehow land in the middle of the stairs versus just going straight in from the bottom, right? Not surprising. Pinball, the balls can ricochet and do weird things and land different places, right? Hence why we put in all of our plastics to protect it from going to no man's land. Well, the ball can also jump and just land right smack in the middle of the stairs, like on the 2nd or 3rd or 4th stair, or even, who knows, maybe even it could jump up to the 5th. I never saw that, but into these middle stairs for sure. And sometimes, not just onto the stairs, but every once in a while you got one that kind of went through the side and went inside the staircase from the side and got stuck in the middle. So, a couple of things there we need to do to prevent that or to address it. One, these brackets here on the side that are holding kind of this upper support, instead of being thin towers, I need to make them more like these like rectangles that can come down and follow the side, the profile of the stairs. So it'll cover that gap on the side so the ball can never go inside the stairs, because that's a huge no-no. We don't want the ball to get stuck inside the staircase mech, right? So I'm going to redo these 3D printed pieces to not just be these thin towers, but to come forward and follow the profile of the stairs. So it'll cover the side of the staircase, all right? So nothing gets inside of it. Now, the question is, what do I do about the balls that are jumping and landing in the middle of the staircase, like right here on the second or third stair? I only have sensors right now at the top and the bottom of the stairs to know when the ball goes into the staircase and when it's at the top of the staircase ready for a multi-ball, right? So if the ball just jumps and lands on step 2, there's nothing in the game to tell the game software, by the way, a ball just jumped onto the staircase. Kick out another ball or advance the staircase and, get it off the staircase. Like, it doesn't know what to do with it. It has no idea where it went. It just assumes the ball got lost, right? So we need to fix that. So I can either go through and put like a sensor on every stair. So there's 5 sensors for every stair. So the game always knows if the ball jumps in, it knows, oh, a ball went on stair 2. It's not really supposed to, but we know where the ball is. He got lucky, got a ball locked. We're going to go ahead and kick out another ball and let him keep playing. That's one way of handling it. Might be a fun way of handling it. Maybe get, oh, I got a lucky ball up there. You're kind of cheating the rules a little bit though too, so I don't know if I like that. But that's one option, and it requires a lot more sensors, and we require me to build up this bracket even a little higher on the side of the stairs so I could have an opto like on each one to track if a ball went in there. Okay, so that's an option. To build up the staircases, besides more built-in sensors, a lot more sensors. A potentially simpler solution, and the one I think I'm leaning towards right now, is what if I go through and I build up the sides of the staircase, also a little higher to cover the sides so the ball doesn't go in the middle of the staircase, but also I then can screw in like a clear piece of plastic over the top. So if a ball does bounce, it'll just roll right off and not get in the staircase. Clear, so you can still see the staircase and see as the balls are advancing, but covers it and keeps one from jumping in from the side illegally. I think I'm leaning towards that one right now. Part of the reason why also is probably the biggest thing I was most concerned about. I've been concerned from the very first day I put this drop target in here. If you remember, the whole reason I put this drop target in front of the stairs is because when I'm playing along, let me show you. Let's say you're playing along and you've got a ball on the first stair, okay? And there's nothing blocking that, but you haven't done whatever shots are necessary to advance the ball up. And I don't want it to just auto advance every time a ball gets in there. I want you to have to hit the right shot to advance the staircase. We could debate that. What's the best thing for the rules? But I like that it doesn't auto advance. I like that it's based on like a shot, and so you have to advance the staircase, and maybe you advance it on accident twice before you get a ball locked in there. Like I like that element to the game. So that being the case, the ball could be sitting there, nothing blocking it. If another ball came up, hit it really hard or not, it can just get stuck there, and it's not because there's a hole, it's because they're magnetized, and so it can just stick to the other ball. And then you get 2 balls stuck on staircase number 1, and that's not really what I want to have happening. Okay, it messes it all up. So what did I do? I said, well, what if I put a smart drop target in front of it? Okay, and that way, whenever there's a ball here, we can block it, and if someone makes a shot there, we can reject it. We can always reject it and have it be popping back up to protect it. Okay, and I like that idea. The gate's there, you need to make a shot to advance it, and then it will lower it down and allow you to make your next ball, etc. But the thing I've seen with the force of the flippers to make these ramp shots and everything else, and just to be good, strong flippers, if you're hitting that dead on, man, there are times that with how springy that drop target is, the ball just totally airballs and launches everywhere. It was coming down, it was jumping over the flippers. It got so high, we had enough vertical bounce going on that all sorts of unwanted ball movement was happening. And I was worried about that, and it happened a lot during the playtesting, so we definitely have to address that. I was struggling to figure out how in the world am I ever going to fix that? What can I do to make that not be so springy? How do I control that? Brian Cox, he's getting a lot of call-outs, but he spent some time with me, and he had a great idea. And I was like, I've seen that before. It's a great idea. So think about like Metallica, Sparky, even like Star Trek, the Stern Star Trek. they have these center bash toys and center shots here, right, where you're trying to make the ball in. And they have a piece of plastic, even the building on like Godzilla at the bottom, that bottom shot, there's like a piece of plastic and even a piece of metal that's flat, that's going over kind of in front of that shot. So the ball goes in it, goes kind of go behind, and that way if it bounces or does anything, it's going to kind of hit like this roof we're putting over that shot. So the ball can't just immediately, airball right back out. It'll bounce and it'll stay contained. So they go, okay, beautiful. I need to do that at the, on the bottom step. I need to put in like a roof. So if I'm already kind of putting in a roof here, I figured, is it really that big of a deal if that piece of plastic just then bends and kind of follows up the stairs and protects it right here also? So if a ball jumps in, it just rolls off. I don't know, that's the way I'm leaning. Regardless what we do for the ball jumping in up on step 2 or step 3, randomly, 100% for sure I have to put in a cover here and address the ball, airballing, ricocheting, and going really high. I need to put like a little cover here. So you can hear my 3D printer going right now, honestly. I'm printing out a new stepper motor mount from before, and then I'm going to go through and model out what these new sides should be. And my first try, without all the extra optos and switches and config stuff for all that, I'm going to try to go through and build these out such that they've got kind of a flat part that I can screw in just a piece of plastic, a clear piece of plastic over the top to cover it. And I'm also going to work on, even before I model all that right now, what I'm going to do is try to mess around and see how can I put a cover in here. With these stand-ups that are right here, I'm probably going to have to move those forward because they're honestly kind of right in the ideal spot on either side of this drop target as to where I need to have posts that can hold that piece of metal in place nice and securely. And then maybe right in front of those, I'll put the stand-ups. Or maybe the stand-ups just need to go away. Maybe I don't have the stand-ups here. The stand-ups are going to be my primary shot for advancing the staircase. Nice and centered, and you might hit them when you don't really mean to. But maybe that's what these guys down here do. Maybe these guys advance the staircase, but I don't know, they can advance it a bunch without you. You can't really control that shot so much. There's a lot of ricochet, right? Pinballing down here. So I'm not sure, honestly, which one I like better. Having these guys open it up or these guys. I think I like these guys being the ones advanced. I'm gonna start by trying to just pull these off, and maybe I'll end up moving these forward and see about putting posts right here. But either way, all this right here is going to require, and other reasons, but this is going to require a new whitewood because I've already got holes cut out for these stand-ups. I pull them out. I can't put the posts in the hole. So I can measure and try to line things up how they would be, but I can't actually secure posts in those holes right now because they're just this big square that's cut out. I mean, I could prototype with it in front, the post right in front. I don't know. I have to play around a little bit and see what we come up with. So, all right, I'm going to stop yakking and start experimenting a little bit. This is nice. These posts, these little threaded posts, they've got a female end I can screw into. The rest of those right there, they are just the perfect height. They're just a little taller than my ball lane guides here on the side. So that's just the right height for staircase number 1. That's going to be perfect. Okay, so those are going to work. I need to get a piece of metal cut. Okay, and I'll just take another one of these 1-inch strips and kind of center right there. I need to have it come forward a little bit though. So I'll probably put those just on the front edge here. That's where I'll have those. I wonder how far forward it needs to come out. We'll see. All right, we've got our 2 posts in. We've got our piece of metal. Holes are not perfectly even front to back, but they are perfectly lined up width left to right. So that's the most important thing. So we can actually screw it in. And all right. There you go. See? So now, ball comes screaming along. It went through it. Yeah, I think that'll work pretty good. I still have to play test the crap out of that and make sure that's working, but I think it's going to be good. All right, so that's really kind of everything on the list. All right, so we still got to finish this one up, but it was kind of three things all together there with the staircase, right? It was the other opto in here, covering the sides, keeping it from hopping on top, and then keeping this this drop target from having the ball ricochet everywhere. So what I'm doing is I'm getting my computer ready, my laptop's Windows is updating, so I can go through and do some play testing with a piece of metal right here. Now the thing I don't like about where I have this piece of metal installed is the posts right now are right in the place where my stand-ups need to be in front of the, on either side of that drop target, and I don't have the ability to put them in front like I just explained, and I can't really put I can't put them behind the post, right? So I'm trying to figure out, like, do I need those stand-ups? Can I maybe make some other switch be the way to advance the stairs? And I'm just not coming up with another approach that I like with what I have on Playfield, so I really want those stand-ups there. But I did have an idea. It would be possible that I could keep the stand-ups pretty much right where they were, okay? Have them have a front mount instead of a rear mount, okay? So there are little brackets coming in front of them. So I still have space behind them to put the post just behind them. Right now I can't do that because I have these two optos right there for the bottom of the stairs. But I think, again, if I am redoing the piece here for the back support of the back axle of the stairs already, I'm going to redo those pieces in 3D, right? 3D print them. I can have those come down, and what if I have those come down and also have a holder for these optos here at the front of the stairs, at the bottom of the stairs, right? So if that's all one piece here on the side that holds those optos, I can make that slim enough to where there's room just in front of those optos for these posts to hold the piece of metal. Now it moves it back. So instead of just like this one little piece of metal, I'm going to need to have kind of like a horseshoe shape. I'm going to need to have a piece that can be held by the post and kind of come out in front and over that drop target and have like an overhang. So I'll need to get fancy with another piece of metal to cut that out and make that work, but that would allow me to have the post be a little bit further back and then have the metal hang out in front of that. So I think that's what I might do. That way I can keep the stand-ups where they were. I think I can make that work with the optos. I will still need to grind the bracket for the drop targets and those stand-ups just a little bit to make sure they don't run, because they kind of like bump into each other unless I made them wider. So it's a bit more to do, but I think that's the direction we're going to go. So I'm going to take this right now once my computer gets ready. I'm doing this update. I'm going to play test this a bunch and make sure that this is sticking out far enough to prevent those air balls from happening. So I'm not sure just how much of an overhang I need to have, right, with that height. So I'm going to test that, make sure we get that in a good place so I know how far out that piece of metal needs to come. And then I'll come back through and reattach the stand-ups and get those get these posts in place with a different piece of metal. See if I can get all that to work. If that all works good, then I'll see about going through and 3D printing out these supports that will come down kind of in a big triangle and include those optos and possibly these other optos as well. We'll see. Anyway, okay. That makes sense? That's where I'm going with it. And I think that's going to work for us. Everything else, man, I'll reprint out this piece so that fits with this flipper. I also am going to be play testing that to make sure this ramp is easier to hit. Yeah. And then I had these mechanical switches underneath my ramps. I'm going to go through and see if I can't figure out, get some wire and make some of those wire ramps or the wire switches. They go on ramps so we know when the ball passes on that. That'll be better, lower profile. Yeah, I think we're getting there though. All right, so we'll do a little play testing for this and the ramp, and we'll call that a wrap for today because I'm gonna have to take some time to get the metal and figure out that. I'll come back around and do another video showing once we have the final staircase pieces in place. All right, okay, ready for some play testing now.